Ben Riggs presents Reading D&D Aloud. Episode 63, OSR Secrets Revealed, with Gavin Norman and Josh McCrowell.
Greetings, internet listeners. I am apparently controversial D&D historian Ben Riggs. This is a podcast in search of a name, but I can tell you what we do on this podcast, and that is we get tabletop role-playing game luminaries together and hope that they spark some fire. The people that are going to be sparking fire today are Gavin Norman and Josh McCrowell. First up, Gavin is the mind behind some of the most exciting work in the modern OSR scene. He's probably best known for Old School Essentials, which is the gold standard for clean, accessible retro gaming rules. Gavin's work doesn't just celebrate the roots of role-playing games, it refines them, making them sing with clarity and style. If you've ever cracked open an Old School Essentials book, you know exactly what I mean. Sharp design, killer layout, and an unwavering love for the game. Gavin Norman is, simply put, one of the defining voices of the old school renaissance. Welcome, Gavin.
Thank you. Amazing stuff you just said. Thanks so much.
I hope it wasn't too glowing. Ben Milton got really embarrassed. I made his rhyme. And I haven't done that since because he was like, people are going to make fun of me online. Also with us is Josh McCrowell, the creator of His Majesty the Worm, a weird, beautiful, melancholy dungeon crawler that uses tarot cards as its core mechanic. It's also up for an ENNIE this year. Josh is also one of the brains behind Knock Magazine, that gloriously chaotic love letter to the DIY RPG scene, packed with ideas, art, inspiration. His work blends creativity with a genuine sense of wonder. And I don't know if you heard this, Josh, but Kelsey Dion and Luke Stratton of Pirate Borg were chatting about like essential OSR texts, and they were both like, "Oh yeah, Knock Magazine is what I'm grabbing off of my bookshelf if my house is started on fire." I don't know if you heard that or not, but I heard it.
I did. Yeah, that was at GaryCon, right? The panel at GaryCon. Yeah,
I think it was. So, Josh, thank you for being here. It's a joy to have you.
My gosh, thanks for having me, especially when you have a luminary like Gavin Norman, and then you're like, and then there's Josh, and it's just really thrilling. So thanks.
So I am gonna ask a question, and I'm gonna ask it of Josh. I think it's the traditional starting question on this podcast at this point, which is, Josh, you said that you wanted to talk to Gavin Norman. Gavin has been kind enough to come on here. Why did you want to talk to Gavin?
Yeah, cheers. I am lucky enough. The OSR is somewhat of a small scene. It's a niche in a niche, and I'm lucky enough to have met, many of my idols, which I'm told you're not supposed to do. Have not had a chance yet to meet Gavin, so hello. But Gavin, man, when I was in the teens, the aughts and the teens, and I was looking around the internet, and I've always been into role-playing games, and I was starting to sniff around these blogs and the OSR, and I got this zine, physical zine in the mail, Wormskin 2, and I was like, man, this is the kind of game I want to play. Like I gotta stop whatever I'm doing and get into this. And so I really credit you for just starting this kind of voracious OSR appetite that I've had ever since. So it's that is why. Yeah.
Fantastic. You started with issue 2, I see.
I've since gotten to get 2 through 8. I have not been able to get my hands on a 1.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, that one is rare. Yeah.
Unfortunately, if I had a load of spare copies stacked up, I'd say I'd just send you one, but I don't. So
I think that's the case for most people right now, right? Right. When you even when you are sniffing around your warehouse and trying to find these unsold back orders, there's one's just not around. Yeah.
Right.
So let me ask you guys this. Where do you think the OSR is in its life cycle right now? Because again, there are people that are like the OSR is dead, but again, it certainly seems to have a lot of life left in by my lights. But what do you guys think?
I'm
I
told it's dead.
I mean,
Sorry, Gavin, go ahead.
I feel it's kind of a weird phase now. Like I don't know where it's going. I mean, it feels like it's growing, but it feels like it's also sort of, I don't know if fragmenting is the right word exactly, but like it's going in different directions, like there's a lot of things within this kind of sphere that is still called OSR, which are actually very different when you compare like, point A over here to point B right on the other side. Like they're actually quite different. Um, so I don't know, yeah, it's kind of a weird one. Like what does the phrase OSR even mean anymore? Is something I kind of wonder.
I mean, I think that this taxonomical question around the definition is something that asking is, I don't know, like a secret handshake for being part of the scene, like what does
Right,
the
right.
R even mean?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
dead? What
yeah,
does it mean?
yeah.
So like,
It's been questioned for years, actually,
right,
thinking going back 10, 15 years, it was
right.
already being questioned then, wasn't it? What does OSR actually mean?
Absolutely. So I also don't know the answer, but I think that like question has been around for a long time. And the thing is, people are still in it. I mean, it's dead and it's different and it's fragmented, and people are still making cool stuff, that are part of the scene. They're still putting out games that I want to play. They're still making books that I want to read. They're, making podcasts that I like to listen to. So, kind of like regardless of the definition or its state, like there's interesting people doing interesting things in it. And I think that's really cool. That's why I still, hang around the saloon with the OSR
Right.
on the outside. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you used the word scene. I guess that's probably as good a definition of any as any, that it's like it can't be tied to like, compatibility with old D&D or anything like that anymore. But it's more just a kind of online scene of like people who are kind of talking about a certain kind of approach to games, kind of rooted back in the original D&D, but yeah, obviously gone off in a lot of different directions now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I annoyed my fellow mushmen in the most recent edition of Knock because I kind of think that this, like, I don't know, talk about the scene itself is at least somewhat interesting, and I indulged myself by like having a section of the magazine kind of dedicated to the state of the OSR and and Olivier, the layout lord, and all around genius, was like, why are we talking about this? like we're making an OSR magazine and you're asking if it's dead, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I just kind of think it's like
right,
kind of interesting. So you when it comes out, like you can see these sorts of conversations had by different people across the blogosphere, kind of asking this and like reverberating the question around and coming to different conclusions.
Right.
I'm embarrassed to say, sorry, Josh, could you just tell us who the Mushmen are? Because I'm concerned the audience might not know. So, who are the Mushmen?
So
are you a Mushman?
Am I a Mushman? I have to assume at some point the spores have taken root deep enough that I can like use claim the title. Yeah, the Merry Mushmen are the company, the publishers of Knock Magazine and other games. They publish adventures and games like the Black Sword Hack. So they're the publishing outfit there.
And I have only recently kind of stumbled upon the Merry Mushman, but my God, man, it's so good. I mean, like I didn't discover Knock Magazine until Luke and Kelsey were like, I would grab that off my shelf if the house were burning down, and then I went and I downloaded issue 1, and I was like, holy cow! But so okay, I'm gonna stop enthusing about your company and
No,
just go back to
please.
please.
We have another 50 minutes.
I interrupted Gavin just to be the voice of the audience there for a second. I apologize. Gavin, go ahead.
Oh, I don't know if I can remember what I was going to say now, to be honest.
Then
No, I don't know. Let's
okay.
move on.
That's okay. I can say something else, or Josh, did you want to say something?
I was curious. Gavin, you in our quest to try and nail a definition onto the OSR, you mentioned one of the definitions being that we can't quite use anymore is that adherence or fidelity, compatibility with old school D&D. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, so like OSE is probably one of the most high fidelity, very, very good version of the original game. And I was wondering if you could speak about the gap between play cultures of the folks in the 70s who were playing a game like OSE and folks in the 2020s who are playing a game like OSE, and how those two play cultures are, like, in my opinion, I don't think this is particularly controversial, very, very different. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was alive in the 70s, but I was a young child and a baby, so I wasn't involved in the play culture then. But yeah, definitely. I mean, from what you hear, I think the OSR is in a way, I don't know if separate from, but only kind of partly includes people who were originally playing as adults back in the 70s. So I think in that sense, it is a kind of rediscovery of the old rules and a kind of fresh take on the way of using those rules to play games. Like, kind of one of the obvious things is like the sort of common OSR approach to traps, say, which talks a lot about, traps as like hazards and challenges to be overcome, like telegraphing traps, giving players hints and clues that there are traps there. And then it's a fun part of the game to figure out what's happening and how to overcome that. Whereas, I think what one hears about the original playstyle from the 70s was that traps, for the most part, literally were just a kind of attrition, that like you'd be walking down a passageway. Oh, okay, there's another 10-foot pit, like someone falls in. And there wasn't so much of this like aspect of using them as part of the play. So I think that's kind of one obvious example of how we see a kind of shift in play culture. I'm basing this just off stuff I've kind of heard discussed online. It's not something I have direct kind of personal experience with. I mean, one thing I do have personal experience with is from playing as a kid in the 80s. A lot of the OSR stuff now is very like hot on procedures, like the kind of turn sequence of the dungeon exploration and the kind of combat sequence. And OSE very much emphasizes that in the way it presents this information. You have these very clear kind of sequences of play. As a kid, I don't remember ever following any of that. Probably that's just because we were kids, not that it was like a different culture of play per se. But I remember it being much more freeform. Like we didn't pay attention to the rules hardly at all. So yeah, I think that's kind of another difference.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wasn't around in the original days either, but it feels that the OSR is very much of a redefinition or a new type of play style that sort of like has facsimile similarities, but isn't actually like a rediscovery. I think a rediscovery might be like propaganda. It's sort of an appeal to authority. It's like, hey, this is the way the game was meant to be played.
Right.
So we found it. So we found the secret, the secret syllable that allows you into heaven. But it seems, especially the more I learn about it from just reading John Peterson books and listening to people like kind of delve into it. And Ben, you're a controversial D&D historian. Maybe
right.
With you.
Apparently I'm controversial. But what was I about to say? Um, it's a funny thing. Revolutionary movements are often more successful when they claim to, in fact, be a return to some sort
Yes.
of origin point.
Mm-hmm.
And it does feel like D&D is often, in my opinion, a fight between computer scientists and math people and English majors.
Right.
And
I'm on the first team. I must confess my affiliation there.
which is often very true of OSR people like Kelsey Dion, computer programming background, Mike Merles, computer programming background, Bruce Nesmith, from way back in the TSR days, computer programming background, but Tracy Hickman, English major. And I think that TSR and Wizards after it really fell for the Dragonlance model. We're going to tell some big epic tale, and in doing so, in order to get from page 1 to page 300, you're going to have to kind of follow this dotted line and go here, 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 and your freedom is therefore constrained. Which is ironic because if you go back and read the first Dragonlance module, it's not like that. It's like a sandbox with a ticking clock. And Hickman obviously also wrote Ravenloft, which is a classic sandbox scenario. So it's as though generations of D&D designers have fallen for what D&D, what they think a Tracy Hickman epic campaign should be, as opposed to what it actually is. I don't think it's a surprise that, again, I'm told the best-selling 5th edition adventure was Curse of Strahd, which is, I think, their most old schoolish campaign, because it still has that Hickman structure, even if they've really fattened it out with a bunch of other stuff. But I would say, yeah, like many revolutionary movements, the OSR is claiming, hey, we're going back to a time before that when play was emergent and random tables were important, because you ever play with one of the guys from the 70s?
No, have I? No.
No,
I did once. It was not a great experience, actually. I opened a trap and I got hit with like a spell that, whatever the opposite of haste is, it slowed me to like a fourth or an eighth of my actions, and then I randomly opened something else which hit me with the exact same thing. So I was going to get to do like one thing every 64 turns or something crazy.
Paralyzed, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is no fun at all. I'm leaving. But I very often I don't get to play very often, so when I do, I play like a maniac, really dangerously, and that obviously clashed with his very simulationist and gamist instincts. But like, I don't think an OSR DM would have handled that situation in the same way.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
My gut instinct is they would have killed my character and like make a new one, because it gets me back to, it theoretically punishes me or there's a consequence, but it gets me back playing faster. So I certainly do think that the OSR, even if it's taking its cues from all of this old school stuff, that it's something new. I will also say, in interviewing Wizards employees, both former and current, it shocked me how often I would talk to designers and be like, oh, so like this OSR game, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, you're making D&D and you're not aware of what's going on in the OSR? Like, it absolutely blew my mind that a person whose job it is to professionally make Dungeons and Dragons and is making 6 figures is not keeping up with what the OSR is doing. But now I have rambled off into the weeds and I talked too much. Someone else should say something.
Well, so Gavin, I said that Wormskin was a big influence on me. And I'm curious. So, issue 8 came out in 2018. Yeah. And I just spent $1 million on the Dolmenwood Kickstarter. And I was curious, like, you know, as a game designer, when did you start to feel cocooned by the zine format and feel that you needed to you know, butterfly into a large scale campaign book, player's guide? When did that shift come, and what made you like make that decision? When did you have to pull the lever and you're like, I can't lie to myself anymore?
Yeah, it's a great question. It has a complex history. So originally, very initial conception of Dolmenwood, we wanted to do it as 3 hardcover books: a player's book, a book of hexes, I think we called it at the time, and a monster book. So that was the very original idea behind it. You know, 10 years later, it's finally kind of manifesting.
Yes.
But then, you know, we started kind of writing, brainstorming ideas, writing a few hexes. You know, 6 months or a year later, nothing really had, you know, no real fruit had kind of come of it in terms of actually putting anything out into the world. So then I had the idea, oh, hey, we could, like, we've got a bunch of material. It's not like it's, you know, it's nowhere near the finished thing, but we could publish this as like a zine, and then we've got something to kind of drive us, you know, to keep publishing more material. We do a zine issue every 3 to 6 months, something like that, and then eventually we've covered everything, and then we can collate everything into these big books that we envisaged. So then I guess probably around the time of Wormskin 8, I had a kind of spreadsheet listing out like all the things we need to cover, you know, all the factions we need to cover, 200 hexes we had on our map that we were kind of locked into. We have to write a description of every 200 of these, you know, etc. All these kind of lists of things we had to develop. And what we'd done in Wormskins 1 to 8 was such a tiny proportion.
Yeah.
And I kind of projected forward how many more zine issues we would need. And it was like we'd need like 50 more issues or something. So I was imagining this like big stack of like zine issues.
Yeah.
And, you know, my own experiences of running Dolmenwood already with the 8 zine issues was that it was kind of a nightmare, you know, like you didn't know what content was in which issue, even as someone who wrote it, you know, like some topics you had to like cross-reference between different zines. You know, it just wasn't a kind of usable format for a big setting like that. And at the same time, I guess I was starting work on old school essentials called BX Essentials originally, but like, you know, I was very much thinking about like, how do you take material and make it kind of usable at the table? So I think those two things combined were what made me stop Wormskin and decide, like, you know, however long it took about 6 years, I guess, in the end, like, I'm going to finish this as in the kind of hardcover book form that I envisaged originally. So that's the kind of weird history of how it developed.
It strikes me, and I didn't think about this before, but as you were telling that story, it also feels as if like the OSR and your parallel development with Wormskin and Dolmenwood, which is beautiful, is I also feel like the OSR movement like grew up at the same time. You know, like we started with some pretty messy products. Not that Wormskin is messy, but you know, it has royalty-free art mixed in, and there's kind of small format. And now the expectation for, you know, newer OSR games is, you know, like these hyper usable, like we've learned a ton about graphic design, information architecture, printing quality. We had these like, you know, $1 million Kickstarters that come out and produce these super sweet books from what was essentially like, you know, like just garage industry before. And like the whole scene is just like reflected in that, like we've just grown up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that was a real kind of, yeah, definitely. I think like my own kind of learning as well over the time. I suppose when the OSR was a very small scene, you know, especially in the like Google Plus days, there was so much like cross-pollination of designers, both in kind of like ideas for kind of game mechanics, like ideas for settings, and also, as you say, like the more like layout and like publishing kind of side of things. So certainly for my own education, definitely followed that trajectory, like starting off very scrappy kind of blog stuff, gradually becoming like a serious publisher, you know.
That is one of the things I like about the OSR, is because it is a scene and there's so many creative people in it that I have learned a lot, not just like by borrowing and transmogrifying rule systems and like kind of collecting them and kind of modularly like putting them together, but the DIY nature of like learning about publishing, learning about art, learning about web design and all that stuff. You know, when I was starting to make my own game, I had so many bookmarks of OSR people who had like, hey, I just ran my first Kickstarter. This is how it went. This is how I made my spreadsheet. You can make a copy of it and use it yourself. Like that was crucial for me, was like having this community of creators around me.
Yeah. I think as well, there's always a lot of people kind of sharing in development stuff as well, isn't it? You know, whether on blogs or on their websites, whatever. Like, this has actually come back and bitten me a bit, but like, you know, I used to do a lot of that. Like, oh, here's something I'm working on. Here's a kind of rough draft or something. Like, you know, if everyone's doing that, you really see things kind of evolving and developing together.
How has it bitten you?
The specific thing I'm thinking of is I even did that with the Old School Essentials logo. I made an old blog post long ago with like some rough kind of, you know, ideas for logos I was playing around with for the game. Somehow those logos are still floating around online, and I see people using them sometimes, and I'm like, no, that's not the official logo.
My brand identity.
Create something. the L is slightly different in the final thing or whatever. I'm sure no one else notices, but
screaming in anger, my brand identity might be one of the best things I've heard on my podcast.
Oh, that's great.
So, Josh, one thing I wondered about is the origins of His Majesty the Worm. So one thing I noticed I've wanted to ask you about actually was use the like O on the cover by, is it John Bower, I think?
That's right. Yeah.
And we used that in Wormskin as well. Like,
yeah.
If there's some kind of connection or like where the kind of origin of the whole thing.
I will. So you are enormously influential, but I do get to say that I didn't, the John Bower does predate my exposure to Wormskin. My partner has family in Norway. We just kind of like John Bower. We have like a John Bower book, you know, that from the 1920s or whatever. And the O, the worm logo is public domain art, redrawn by my graphic designer for my purposes, and she has a tattoo of it. It is in the frontispiece of the gnomes and trolls, and we have this old first edition English version, and it's the frontispiece of that book, and she got that tattooed, so I put it in my game.
Wow. Right, cool. Right, so it's just a fun coincidence then. That's really cool.
Well, more annoyingly to me is that there's some Norwegian black metal artist whose name has escaped me. It is also their icon, and a lot of people think that I'm ripping it off of them, and they're like, "Oh, you stole this black metal artist's logo," and I'm like, "Well, it's public domain, and we both stole it from John Bower. I don't know that person."
Weird thing of using public domain, isn't it? Actually, that like it may seem obscure, but then you never know. Someone else can come along and use it as well. Like,
yeah, totally. I thought I was being very, very clever and very like tongue in cheek about like my personal inspirations, and then everybody like
right. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear about the origin of the game, especially the stuff with tarot cards. Like that's very kind of original. I've never seen a game using tarot cards before.
Oh, cheers. If you're interested, when I was writing the game, I did some research and to see what else was in that space, and there's a surprising number of card-based games, and I have a pretty good master list that somebody else has put together of both games with card games and then games with card mechanics rather, and then games with tarot card mechanics specifically. And I will say that there's nothing new under the sun. The origins of the game is, well, I was getting into the OSR. I've always made games for my friends, and they've been very indulgent in playing them with me. His Majesty the Worm is my first attempt to try and get something cleaned up enough and polished enough that somebody else could run it instead of just a pile of notes for me and my friends. So that was like sort of an exercise. I was underemployed when I started writing it. I wrote a ton of it over the course of like 6 months, and then it took 7 years to polish that initial like kind of brain dump up and get it into layout when I kind of returned to a real workforce.
What's the final page count?
404.
And if you were going to summarize what the game is to someone who's unfamiliar with it, what would you describe it as?
I think the way I would say it is that whereas OSC it has high fidelity to the original D&D rules and presented very beautifully, I came to the OSR principles, the things in Matt Fitch's primer or the Principia Procuspa or kind of text like that, and kind of fell in love with the play style. And so if you had to make a game from just hearing about the principles of the OSR movement, but having never been exposed to an RPG before, I think His Majesty the Worm is a dungeon crawler that is born from those first principles. So, it has the same sorts of play structures and procedures of dungeon crawling, but there's no armor class or strength bonus or stuff like that. I've sort of like redesigned that stuff just from kind of thinking about how a game should be made in a modern way. Yeah.
So I interrupted you. You said that you had wrote most of it in 6 months and then spent 7 years polishing the game.
Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, those are the origins. I was interested in blogs. I was writing blog pieces. I don't think there's, I think really the game is a collection of blog house rules, kind of with like a silly tarot lens. I was interested in tarot cards because, I was playing a lot of D&D 5th edition at the time. It's just what my friends wanted to play. I was playing other things too, but I was playing a lot of that. And my God, the turns in that game, if you have 8 guys at a table, can take so long that I had a lot of time to sit there and like kind of just chew on my pencil and think. And I was like, what could we do that let us all go at the same time? And I started like drafting, and I was thinking about cards like poker, like how you like have these hands of cards and you go around and everyone's kind of like playing cards and taking cards, and you're all engaged. There's not the same type of turns in poker. And I was trying to recreate that experience to have simultaneous action, and I settled on cards because I thought they were fun to play with. Yeah, and tarot cards just look more magical than a playing card, so I wanted it to look cool.
Sorry, Gavin, you go ahead, Gavin. I'm sorry.
Cool thing about tarot cards is you've got like hundreds and hundreds of different sets, all with their own kind of artwork as well that you can use as you wish. So it's not like you need an official His Majesty the Worm tarot deck to play it. You can get whatever you feel like.
Yeah, I think some people, when I've said that it was tarot card based, they're like, but I love collecting dice. And I'm like, friend, you're going to enter a darker world. You're about to collect tarot decks. Like, yeah.
I was really blown away by your advice for GMs in the book, where you're like, here are the 4 sentences that are your power sentences. And anytime a role-playing game book does that and gets down to that granular tactical of a level in helping the GM, I really appreciate it. And I anytime I'm watching a friend game master for the first time, and I teach 7th and 8th grade by day, so I see a lot of 12-year-olds run their first games, and I'm like, I think from now on I'm going to print that page out and be like, all right, these are the 4 sentences that you need to say. This is it. Here you go. You're a game master now. Off. So I thought they were brilliant.
Oh, thanks.
I should ask, do you remember what they are? Can you tell the audience?
Yeah, I think so. I use them myself. The game is just trying to teach other people how I run games. And I'm not making any other statements besides that. I'm not saying no claimants on the game, except that I have accurately to the time that it was printed, described my own game, my home game. I think that it's, you know what, like, yes, you can do that. Say more about what you're doing. No, you can't do that. Or let's draw to find out what happens. Those are the stock phrases of, yep, that makes sense. Or hang on, let's get on the same page about this. This is what say back to me what you're trying to do to make sure that we're in the same conceptual space. I think that in defiance of some Reddit wisdom, I think saying no is actually a really useful tool. And for everything else, if you can't just automatically do it, if there's an interesting risk and an interesting reward, and it's kind of up to fate, we should use the mechanics of the game to resolve that.
And how at the table, how do you feel like that plays out differently than it would in I'll pick on Old School Essentials than it would in an Old School Essentials game?
To me, it doesn't. You know, I use the same stock phrases for any trad game. You know, it would be different if we were playing a story game, where there might be or a GM full game where players are sharing kind of like narrative responsibilities that are kind of traditionally held by a GM. But if you have a traditional power structure, I think those are my defaults when I'm running, any OSE and I buy the book, playing a Mushman adventure. That's how I do it.
Yeah, I think the difference is making it explicit, isn't it? In OSE, I don't think there is explicitly that advice anywhere, but it's making the kind of play culture around the games explicit in the rules text, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it's the play culture, the blog best wisdom that kind of like crept in like on top and sits. I don't know, almost like exegesis, like in a medieval tome. Like you have like explanatory text from medieval monks in the margins. Like that's how I feel. I wrote that a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I tried to do in Dolmenwood as well. To present not just the rules of the game, but a lot of advice around how to run games, how to play games, this kind of stuff. I feel like probably what you've done is more thorough in that respect, but I think it's definitely a kind of thing that we're seeing people trying to do more now, like taking this kind of play culture around OSR games and trying to build that into the game kind of thing, whether through mechanics or just guidance.
A person that I thought has done a tremendous job, like an enviable job, wish I could have read it first so that I could have borrowed their structures, is Sean McCoy for Mothership. The Warden's Guide for that is the best like GM's manual I've ever seen. It's so smart.
Okay, I have to check it out. I've still never seen it. But yeah, a lot of people recommend it.
It is, I mean, the stuff around, I think the stumbling blocks, especially if you're new to the hobby, and I am surprised and flabbergasted that anyone would pick up Worm if they're new. It feels very niche to me, but I think the impediments to learning the game are all about like play culture stuff. It's like, how often do we play? Where do we play? What does a game session look like? How do we navigate these like interpersonal soft skills? And the Warden's Guide does a really, really good job of kind of forefronting that stuff, and not just what is a role-playing game? It's kind of like this. And it's like, here are the practical physical realities of human beings playing the game, and let's talk about them. It's really, really well put together. I love it.
We're actually working on a starter set for OSE at the moment, so this kind of stuff is something we're like writing and thinking about at the moment. So we've actually just finished the DM advice section, but I'll have to check out what Mothership says, and we can go back and edit bits if there's choice nuggets we've missed out
on. What are you excited about from the starter stat? Like, what's something that you think, oh hell yeah, I nailed that?
The thing I really love especially is the base town, actually. So we've got 3 books in the set. So book 1 is the kind of player's book, just introduces the basic rules and how to play the game, choosing your character, this kind of stuff. Book 2 has the DM advice and a base town, and book 3 is the like dungeon adventure. but to kind of publish a very fleshed out base town and have all these really nice kind of hooks between the base town and the dungeon. And the set will come with like pre-gen characters, so each of those has little hooks into the base town as well.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
just the whole like cohesive kind of mixing of things, yes, feels really cool. Like I really hope people will enjoy that.
That is exciting. I really like the idea of having the plot hooks, like these like lines running between the books. I think that's really neat.
Yeah,
Looking forward to
exactly.
checking
So
it out.
there's stuff in the dungeon that you can discover about the town, and vice versa. So both are like important aspects of the adventure.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
So what creators are making you guys jealous right now in the best possible way? Who do you think is pushing the boundaries of the hobby? Obviously Sean McCoy in Mothership, but beyond that.
Let me look at my most recent, like, I am a sucker for Kickstarters. Sometimes when I'm confronted with obvious questions that like I have opinions about, my brain shuts off. I don't know, it's something about the way that I process information. So it's not like I don't have...
I can answer my own question if you're both need a second to think.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, because I had a Kickstarter arrive 2 days ago that I'd been waiting for a year and a half, and it's called Infinity of Ships.
Oh, cool.
And it is it's a ship book, but it's very OSR in that it's a lot of random tables, and it just has a very OSR attitude, both in art and in content. Like there's a ship called the Pain Body, which is a Cenobite class battle cruiser. And there's other ones where it's like, there's one ship named after Ken from Barbie, but I forget what the name is. Really funky art. The book, of course, is absolutely gorgeous. And I really wish I had it sitting downstairs on my kitchen table. But here, let's see. I have this right here. This is the bookmark that came with it, which obviously says drones, drones, drones. And then on the back there's a random table for drone creation, which is unreadable. But let me read something off of it. So you roll a 1d6, and the names are things like Fletch, Goodest Boy, Kelvin with a K, and Yes Ma'am. It gives you form, function, and descriptor. The forms are cheetah, floating face, hypercube, koala, meta orb, mosquito swarm. The functions are the most prosaic because it's things like combat and entertainment. And then the drones have a descriptor like apathetic, chatty, deafening, god complex, outdated, or prismatic. I'm not quite sure what prismatic means in that case, but
is this heavily inspired by Ian M. Banks? It sounds
perhaps
very...
I have not read Ian M. Banks. He's on my list of
that
sci-fi writers
sounds
to get
like
to.
straight from his culture novels. So.
Okay, I'm just gonna go add that to my list of things to read. Like, I'm like, okay, I have the Warden's Manual behind me. I'm like, I gotta read the Warden's Manual. I gotta read Ian M. Banks, and I'll confess, I've only read the first 50 pages of His Majesty the Worm. But I'm like, do I want to run this on Monday? Maybe I should run this on Monday. Maybe I should just finish reading it, because what 200 pages of it random tables?
Yeah, the rules are relatively light. A lot of it is trying to give enough supporting material. So yeah, I think you're 50 pages in. Most of the rule you've covered the rules.
Yeah, because again, the rules are so light, and I've never played a rules light dungeon crawler. I'm like, what would that be like? But anyway, so what do you guys? Who's inspiring you guys right now?
So some games that I'm interested in or that I've enjoyed recently. I am a huge fan of Emily Allen. I recently got, these are some classic books at this point. They're just reprinted, but I was happy to get the physical editions of Gardens of Inn and the Stygian Library.
Yeah, I got those as well. Beautiful books.
Those are cool. And I really think that her creativity in terms of like random tables are hard to write well, and when you see somebody do it well, it can be really inspirational. I love her random tables. I've been interested recently in what my friends are calling capsule games, which are a genre of RPG where you're not like, hey, you can make any character you want and do anything, but it's kind of like, hey, here are some pre-made characters, and there's not others. You're like, these are the characters that you play, and this is the scenario that they're in. There was 2 that came out this year. I guess Eat the Right came out last year, but Yazeba's Bed and Breakfast came out this year. I enjoyed both of those games. Jay Dragon is working on another game right now called the 7-Part Pact in a similar mode, and I think she's doing like incredibly smart game design work. Right now, I don't know that I'm ever gonna get some of the games she makes to my table. But by God, when you see like a genius at work, like stand back, like she is redefining the genre like over and over and over.
Did she do Yazeba's?
Yeah, she did Yazeba's.
Oh,
well,
wow.
Her outfit, Possum Creek Games. So, a lot of people were involved, but she was involved. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I have to pick. Like Gen Con is 10 days away. I'm like, I don't need to get anything at Gen Con. What books do I need? Well, maybe I need Yazeba's. I'm like, sorry. But Gavin, anyone tripping your trigger?
Yeah, one thing I got recently that I really enjoyed was the Andrew Kolb Alice in Wonderland book.
Mm-hmm.
I have what was the first one he did?
Neverland.
Yeah, Neverland. Yeah, I had that as well. But the kind of theme of Alice in Wonderland and the like kind of dungeon focus of it really kind of spoke to me more than the others he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, what I love about his stuff is just the like absolute like precision kind of layout, like how everything is structured on 1 or 2 pages, and you've just got so much information packed in there. Yeah, really amazing stuff.
I like him too.
I think as well that kind of ties back to what we were saying before about like the advancing of the layout and information presentation kind of stuff. Like he is top of the game in that kind of stuff.
Do you think you would ever play it at the table, though?
I would like to. Probably practically, I won't, just due to time and other things going on. Yeah, I would love there to be a world where I would run a campaign using the Wonderland book. I mean, it's often the way, isn't it? You buy a lot of stuff. Feels like it would be amazing to run, but then do you actually find time to, dedicate some months or years to playing it?
I mean, I'm 46 going on 47, and I'm like, how many more games do I get to play?
Right. Yeah.
I left a funeral to come and record this podcast. So I'm thinking about, Time's winged chariot hurrying near.
Right.
But okay, so let me ask this then. What are you guys both working on in the future that the listeners can listen for and perhaps support monetarily?
You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Mine's probably pretty humble. I just put out a dungeon for Worm. I'm working on a larger one. Dare it enter the definition of mega dungeon? I guess we'll have to see. And that'll be my next major project. But I'm a hobbyist, so I'm kind of like working slowly but surely. I'm also working on Nox 6 right now. So that's me.
Right, nice. So we're working on the OSE starter set, as I said. Kind of, we have a bunch of kind of different projects going at one time. When I say we, this is me and Chance Dudenak and Brad Kerr, who I work with. So there's the OSE starter set. The other big thing we're working on is a book of Devils and Demons for OSE, which is really fun. Like we deliberately left them out of the OSE referees guide because I wanted to do a lot more with them than just include like 10 stat blocks. So we've got this book, which I think it's about 150, 160 pages. So, obviously loads and loads of stat blocks, big chunks of information about each of these kind of demon lords we're detailing, about their like planes they live in, and all the kind of denizens of those planes. And then it goes into like the cults in the mortal world that worship these different demon lords, and the hierarchies of the cults and how you get initiated, and kind of spells they would have. And then obviously rules for like demonology, like summoning demons, banishing them, making pacts and bargains with them, demonic familiars, this kind of stuff. Like it's really fun stuff to get into. So that's kind of the other big thing we're working on.
Gonna get a parental like control group coming after you, like in the 80s.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully the satanic panic is a thing of the past.
Knock on wood. Well, knock on wood.
I think it's too hard to frighten people with role-playing games these days.
Right. Yeah.
There's just easier targets, unfortunately. But if you're ever interested, Joseph Laycock, who's a professor somewhere in Texas, wrote a book called Dangerous Games, focusing on the satanic panic around tabletop role-playing games. I want to say through the World of Darkness in the 90s. And the book is amazing, incredible. I cannot say enough good things about it. So if you do have an interest in that history, I would highly recommend picking that up. I've had him on the show once, and I would love to have him again, because he's just fascinating to speak to. All right, I asked you guys what you're working on. Obviously, the audience should all go and pick up His Majesty the Worm. And would you say the Old School Essentials box set or the core book, Gavin, is the best place to start?
Well, I would go for the two books, the Player's Tome and the Referee's Tome. I love the box sets, but I think when you add so there's the classic box set and there's the advanced expansion. When you add those two together, I think it does get a little unwieldy in that you're having to, you've got 2 monster books, you've got 2 books of classes, 2 books of spells. So I think overall having the 2 books together, the player's book and the referee's book, has you covered basically.
I mean, again, I'm a sucker for box sets,
yes.
So I have both the box sets, and you open it up and you're like, oh, it's so cool. These same.
I love them as physical artifacts, absolutely.
Yes.
Perfect little books. Oh gosh. All right. Well, I'm going to say, listeners, if you are not yet a patron of this fine podcast, we would appreciate you to become one. It is only $3 a month. We only have one level, and I think we're only ever going to have one level. If you join today, on July 29th, which is the Tuesday before Gen Con, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I am planning on practicing my Gen Con seminar live for Patreon subscribers. I would say that I'm titling my Gen Con seminar Resolving the Mysteries of D&D. If you go on YouTube or social media, you will oftentimes see people saying things like, why is Wizards of the Coast doing this thing? And people will have answers that are usually kind of like, this is what I think is the answer. But having now interviewed, I think, 24 Wizards veterans from the 21st century, I would say I have concrete answers to a lot of these questions that I am hoping to unveil in this seminar. So I'm going to do it at Gen Con. I'm not planning on releasing it more widely than that for probably the next 6 months. But you, Patreon subscribers, can listen to it live on Tuesday at 9 p.m. I'll send out a Zoom link so you can join me and listen. So if you think that is worth $3, we would love to have it. I'm going to close with an obnoxious question for Gavin. How many copies of the OSC rules do you think you've sold? And I realize that's a loaded question given the number of products that contain the OSC rules.
Yeah.
But if you were going to guess, what do you think?
I wish I knew. It's something I kind of occasionally think, I should add up all the numbers from print runs and Kickstarters and so on. I would guess across, print and PDF and all the different formats, 30, 40,000, maybe something like that.
That's great. I mean, those are TSR numbers though, man. Like those are the kind of numbers TSR was doing in the 90s. So that's a lot. That's great. Wow.
Yeah. It's really amazing that there's so many, potential players out there. and hopefully more and more.
Josh, anything else you want to say? I realize it's too late to tell people to go vote in the Ennies. I'm sorry.
That's all right. No, I just want to thank everyone involved again for your kindness and generosity of your time to hang out with me today and talk. It's been really fun.
Yeah, this was a delightful hour. Thank you so much. Gavin, thank you so much for being on the show too.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Great talking to you both.